Now then, hello. It is actually 9 o'clock. We didn't do a pre-show because uh, we had this very tiny technical issue right at the last minute. I am joined tonight by this gentleman here. This man
Hello.
here. It's Garry Dibley.
I broke
OMG, it's
I
the
broke it.
Dibbers himself.
See, first week back and I broke it.
You did. Yeah, it was you that did it. It's been fine. No, actually, it hasn't been fine. Yeah. Sav and I have had a few issues over the last few weeks, I have to say. But, by and large, it's been okay. So with this man back, full screen,
Yeah.
OMG, with lots of toys, yes, it's all gone a bit squonkified. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
hopefully,
It
fingers
would be
crossed,
good.
it'll be all right. Let's have a look who's in chat. We've got Bernice, and we've got Dream, we've got Miles, Tom, Deirdre on Divinity, Mr. Hi-Fi Stud is in the room, Leanna Lawless, of course, Martin, Paul, Mad, can't read it right, Monster, Rob, Trevor, John, Sputs, and more. Yes, Max Drum's in there, Costello, and there's me because I'm not logged in. But yeah. So yes, hello chat. I'm just looking there. Then he says, "Yeah, Marco. Yes, it's me and it's him." Yes. Anyway, let's crack on, shall we? We'll crack on. We'll just get on with it because we've got stuff. We've got stuff to moan about and talk about and show you and all that kind of stuff. So let's have what we like to call in the trade the tittles. Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids. Oh dear, hello. Let me just meet myself there. Just had a little joke with Gary there. But there you go. Anyway, Mr. Dibley, let me put you on screen.
Yes.
How the devil are you? What have you been up to?
Busy, mate. It's been good. Yeah, it's been busy, busy, busy. Obviously, I had to take a little break due to Vape Fest and working my fingers to the bone. But all that's over now, and yeah, I'm gradually getting back up to speed. A little more chillaxed. The work life is chilling out as well. So everything seems to be coming back on an even keel. So yes, here we are again. Yeah, I think we were sort of planning for around about start of October, but things have moved on a little bit earlier than expected, which is good. So yeah, back and new things that could probably kill me coming up.
Yes, I've seen the VT that we're going to show tonight already, as you do. And there are lots of opportunities for missing appendages.
Yeah, there's definitely a few, and that's only the start of it. There's more on order, and more coming as I think this little project grows. It's yeah, I've made space in the workshop. The fridge is gone. I built a new workbench, and you probably see over this shoulder. There's one new tool, and there's a few more coming. So yeah, lots of. Hopefully, I tried to think going forwards what we could do. and for me to play as well, obviously. So I like playing in the evenings with myself. So yeah, lots of new stuff. He hopes coming forward.
Lots of double entendres. Yes, the double entendre on a Tuesday is back, as is with Mr. Dibley. Yes, that lovely bandsaw at the back. Very good for doing lamb chops and other such
Yeah.
things. Yes, apologies for that train going past. It's rather loud. Yes, so what we've got tonight? Well, we've got a bit of ET from Garry, showing you his new bits. Oh yes, there's a few doubles in there, just a few. I listened intently for how many doubles there were in there. There's not many. But we'll get there. There'll be lots of little doubles going in, I am sure. He just can't resist it. He can't help himself at all. But I've got a little story here that was on our little team Skype chat, which I thought I would share with you. Yes, here we go. So this comes from MSN News via the Independent. And no more fag breaks. Council bosses tell staff they have no right to smoke during working hours. See where this is going, can't you? Cigarette breaks could be a thing of the past for workers at a county council which is planning to ban staff from smoking during working hours. This is Nottinghamshire County Council, which employs 9,000 people, and they intend to stop staff from smoking at any time during paid working hours, even during short breaks. The ban, which includes e-cigarettes, will extend to any authority-owned buildings, land and vehicles, and staff will face internal disciplinary action if they fail to comply. A policy document issued to staff on Tuesday said they had no right to smoke, according to the Nottingham Post. The council's Deputy Director of Public Health, John Tomlinson, said that the proposal aims to promote better health in the area. We are trying to be a supportive employer and have a duty of care to protect the health of our employees as part of a wider remit to take a leading role in promoting better health in Nottinghamshire, he said. There is more, but quite frankly, that's all I'm saying. That's just absolute codswallop. If someone's on a break from work, be that a lunch break or a tea break or whatever, who are they to say what they can and can't do in their break? Now, if it's on their land, their property, what have you, then who are they to say they can't go outside that boundary and have a cigarette if they wish, or use their e-cigarette if they wish? I would love the the unions. They've already got hold of this, obviously, the unions. But I would love them just to take the whole of the county council staff out on strike and see how long this ban lasts, which is supposed to be coming into force in 2016. What do you make of that, Garry?
See, yeah. I mean, straight away we're going into a rant. I like this. We're back. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I can't see, for one, how they can actually tell people what you can do, which is effectively in your own free time. I did come up with a solution if they are absolutely full on intent on taking this forward, which would to be making vaping a religion, effectively, because they can't tell you can't, respect your religion during break times. And we've already got the Archangel that lives up on cloud 9. And we do have a little devil that sits on the other side. So we're halfway there. We just need to develop that idea a little bit more. And we're there with a full-on blown religion, which I'm sure they couldn't do anything about. No, in seriousness, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? There's no way on earth can they... it's civil liberties, really, isn't it? How can they do that? They can't. Silly.
Well, I just wonder, if they say, I'm sorry, but if you're on your lunch break, which is a paid break, you're not able to eat a pork sandwich in case it offends a certain religion, or a beef sandwich in case it offends another religion. They can bring all that stuff into it as well. Do you know what I mean? It's just absolutely ludicrous for an employer to say you cannot have a fag on your break. Who are they to decide what you can either eat or drink, unless it's obviously alcohol? There's obviously going to be alcohol and drug related policies, and that's for everywhere, and I totally agree with that. Although Years ago, we used to go to the pub at lunchtime on a Friday, and then I might nod off in a meeting in the afternoon. But that happens. Um, so most companies have got an alcohol and drug use policy and other things. But to say you can't have a cigarette on your break, and I'm not talking about sneaking little breaks to go for a fag, which upsets non-smokers and probably non-vapers as well. If people keep going out and out and having a little chuff, in addition to other breaks, because then that's not really fair, is it? Let's see what chat I've got to say. Well, I'll put you on screen, mate. Then I can look down at my screen down here.
That's fine. You go for it. I shall look all knowingly into the camera.
Now, Leanna Lawless has said if they don't pay you, one firm banned smoking in your own car in the car park. You had to drive out. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Now, Whip It Up 69 said lunchtime ain't paid for, is it? I'm not entirely sure, to be fair. If you've got an 8-hour working day, but part of that is your lunch break, be it half an hour or an hour, depending on who you work for, then it's kind of in your working day. However, it's your break to have time away from work, time away from your computer screen, what have you, and you can go and have your dinner or your lunch, whatever you want to call it, depending on where you're from in the country, I suppose. Or you can do what I do and eat at my desk, which a lot of people do, which is a bit crazy. But then I do go out when I'm in the office. I do go out and I'll have a vape. But I would really want to see this in action and see what happens. And I wonder what else would happen. Let me go and see here. Miles Dolphin said that we're all going to start chanting "Oh," as in "Oh." You never know. And Leanna Lawless again says, unfortunately, it's the USA that allows the use of drugs in recognised religions. Yes, maybe we should all become a religion. I don't know. Let me put you back on again, because I need to look at another screen.
Do you know what? While you're doing that, I was going to tell you, you were talking about the eating a desk thing. And I know just how far company politics can go sometimes, because one of our largest clients, we had a meeting the other day, and they were sort of joking about people eating hot meals at their desks, same sort of thing. And this whole meeting spent 2 hours on discussing post was actually a meal at your desk, because they said you could only eat cold at your desk, and they spent discussing whether the toast would be cold by the time you walked from the toaster to your for it to become a cold meal. So it's just some of the politics out there around some companies nowadays are just bonkers. It's to the extreme, you know what I mean? It's just silly.
Yes. We may have some issues with the stream. It seems to be a little bit up and down, so there might be some buffering. Hopefully it'll stay stable enough to get through the show. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yes, now, in the offices where I work, in a particular office, the toasters have been removed. So some places you can use toasters, for instance, or kettles. Other places you're not allowed to, because of health and safety. You can only have them in one little area. But it's that story has infuriated the heck out of me. And if somebody can put that into chat, by the way, the link to the rest of that story, you can see all of it. But yes, Bernice says salary for us covers 40 hours, so no lunch break, that is paid. And Mark Shaw said, okay, it was because I refreshed Twitter that the stream went. It was your fault, Mark. You refreshed Twitter and the stream drops. Yes. I think it should be okay again. It looks okay. All the things look okay again. Whip It Up has got toasters, kettles and microwaves. Yeah, in some places that I go to, they've got all those things. But in other places, they took the toasters away. And that was mainly probably because people were burning toast and setting off the fire alarm, as opposed to vaping in the toilet and setting off the fire alarm.
Yeah, I think a lot of that as well is down to, because we do a lot in offices, and a lot of that is down to how they design the electrical circuits for those areas. And a lot of them, people add more and more things, microwaves, this, that, and the other, and they end up blowing the circuits, constantly tripping them. So that's another reason.
Constantly tripping.
Yeah.
Now there's a thought. We're going back to that religion again, aren't we? Yes. Yeah, so, I don't know. We'll keep an eye on that one. I'm going to keep an eye on that story and see what happens. I know that the union, I think it's Unite, they're going to ballot their members. But it would be interesting to see how it all pans out. And I've got to say that although the smoking ban has been in place for a number of years, and that did include cars and vans, company cars and vans, because effectively it's your workplace, the amount of people I see smoking in vans, delivery vans and all that kind of stuff still, and I used to smoke in my car, and I vape in my car, but it's my car. It's not a company car. I may be on company business if I'm travelling somewhere, but it's still my car, so they can't tell me. They couldn't tell me to stop smoking in it because it's my car. But if it's a company vehicle, then you're still covered under that regulation. And I did mention this probably a couple of years ago when it came in that I'd seen officers of the law smoking in police cars, which I found was a bit strange. Yes. Anyway, I think we should take the first break because we've got some BT coming up. So let's take the first break, and Gary and I will be back very, very shortly when I find the adverts. There they are. We'll see them in about a minute and a half.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
And now it's back to Vaper Scene on Vaper Trails TV. Vaper Scene is sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
And welcome back to part 2. Yes. Now, the next bit of ET is a bit long. It's not hugely long, but it's a bit long. And you may or may not have seen it. We flagged it up on our page a couple of 3 days ago. And it's Clive Bates talking to Fraser Cropper and the Totally Wicked lawyer about the action that Totally Wicked have brought. And this kind of segues into that last story, really. because this action is the only thing that's happening, really, of any substance against what is going to be happening next May. Obviously the TPD, Article 20 in May 2016, which has to be implemented by, I believe, January the 1st, 2017. So Clive was talking to Fraser and the lawyer about all sorts of things here. So it's a good watch, and I thought it'd be good to get it out there. So have a little look, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
So Fraser, let's start with the big question. Why are you actually bringing this case? I mean, there's a danger it could cause confusion. You know, it's not the perfect directive by any means, but some people would say it's a lot better than it could have been. What are you hoping to get from the challenge?
I think there's a number of sub-questions in that. Firstly, why we're bringing the challenge. Well, we decided when we first saw the draft TPD in 2012 that if that entered legislation, it would be just fundamentally wrong. Wrong for commercial reasons, of course, wrong ethically for what he was doing and what he should have done. And secondly, and probably just importantly for Paul, it is wrong legally. It's a wrong legal premise, and it's gone through a process which is atypical of what a legal process should be for European legislation. But from my perspective, the first elemental part of that response is really important to our business, which is I don't understand, and nor do our customers, or those who spend the time reading into this subject matter, understand why this regulation is cleaved to tobacco products regulation. It doesn't seem to have been based upon evidential fact and a data which establishes the risks which are trying to be mitigated, and it is fundamentally going to disrupt a marketplace which has been able to, without any public sector health, generate 2 million vapers in the UK, over 10 million vapers in Europe, who've taken their own information that's available, made their own decision and concluded the vaping using a e-cigarette device, a tobacco product, is the right thing for them to do. And that's supported not only by that empirical evidence of the users, but also by a significant welter of academic research. And the TPD, when and if implemented, will fundamentally undermine, nay, destroy that.
So, but what gives you the right to do this? I mean, basically, I mean, you make some good points from your point of view as a business. It may not be what you want, but what gives you the right to try to overturn the will of the European Parliament, the European Commission, the 28 member states that have all agreed this through, you know, legitimate lawmaking process?
Well, that's a valid question. Every citizen or company has the right to expect that the democratic process is followed. If the democratic process was followed, we would not have had this regulation. There has been a circumvention and sometimes an absolute ignoring of the due process should have been followed. And indeed, the due process should have been informed by the necessary information to make sure the regulation and the output of that legislative process was fit for purpose. Neither of those two things have happened, and therefore it's a legitimate thing for us to do, which is to, A, as a citizen, and B, as a European legitimately trading company, to challenge a directive which is patently unacceptable and has not followed due process.
Paul, what's the lawyer's view on that question?
Yes, well, the directive may well have been passed into law by a majority of the MEPs, but that doesn't mean that the MEPs can pass whatever they like. There are important overriding principles that are set out in EU law, in the EU treaties, and any decision to pass new legislation has to be in accordance with those overriding principles, and we identified that the Tobacco Directive and Article 20 in particular don't meet those requirements.
So given that the case is based on an infringement of the EU treaties, what are the main legal arguments you're going to put in front of the court about Article 20 to get them to overturn it?
Well, there are four main grounds to the legal challenge. The first one is that the provisions of Article 20 are disproportionate, and that means that they're too heavy. This is a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and they could have been dealt with in a less restrictive and less burdensome manner. Secondly, that they're discriminatory. They discriminate between tobacco cigarettes and electronic cigarettes, and they discriminate in favour of the tobacco products, which are the more harmful products. Thirdly, these measures could have been dealt with on a member state by member state basis. There's no requirement for these to be addressed on a pan-European basis. It could have been left to individual member states to deal with particular issues as they see fit. And fourthly, that the infringe key treaty principles and key rights that Totally Wicked has. One of the restrictions will be a ban on advertising, and that will infringe key rights that Totally Wicked and other manufacturers have.
So who's going to hear the case, and who will be defending it, against this legal challenge that you're bringing?
Well, the case will be heard by a panel of judges in the European Court in Luxembourg. There will probably be a hearing in about a year's time. It may not happen until the back end of 2015. Before then, there will be an opportunity for Totally Wicked, for the European institutions, and any member states that take an interest in this challenge to put in written submissions, setting out their arguments one way or the other, whether it's in favour or against the provisions of Article 20. And those submissions will be filed in the early part of next year. Once we've seen those, then we'll understand what approach the EU institutions are going to take in resisting this challenge, because at the moment they've not played any part in the legal process so far, which has simply been a challenge issued against the Secretary of State in the UK. So we'll understand more the basis upon which they are asserting that the directive is lawful. There will then be an opportunity for the Advocate General in the European Court to give his legal opinion as to whether the provisions of Article 20 are lawful or not, and there will then be the hearing towards the back end of next year. So it will be quite a slow process over the next 12 months, but hopefully by the spring of next year we'll have a better of the different arguments and which parties are seeking to intervene and support, resist Totally Wicked's arguments.
Of that, some people say that the Department of Health is supporting this case. Now, that doesn't.
They're not supporting the case. What they are essentially agreeing to is this being referred to the Luxembourg courts for a ruling as soon as possible, and they're going to leave it to the EU institutions to make the case. They're simply not going to participate.
And we are able to offer those to objective judges, then why will they not be simple and compelling to the legal team who are asked to make a decision? Just how many shenanigans there have been and how untypical of what. So I think when we get ourselves in front of a court, when we get the opportunity and fully supported arguments, it's going to be exceptionally difficult for there to be a counter argument that picks them up to.
Affidavits will provide evidence, or is there some other way in which they can get involved? What about outside the court process and the sort of court of public?
Basic tenets of our legal case. To be competitive, that's allowed to continue the innovation and to deliver the products in that environment that the customers need. So the more people aware, the greater the base of advocacy. That they are legally bound to listen to this objectively, and the more people who are informed of those simple objective arguments,
Well, the European Court will formally, and it will publish the questions
Right then, let's see if this works. Unfortunately, broadband has failed me tonight, so I've switched to 4G. So hopefully we will get there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start that video again, and hopefully you're going to see it. Do apologise, out of my control unfortunately. So let's try it again. Take two.
that if that entered legislation, it would be just fundamentally wrong. Wrong for commercial reasons, of course, wrong ethically for what he was doing and what he should have done. And secondly, and probably just importantly for Paul, it is wrong legally. It's a wrong legal premise, and it's gone through a process which is atypical of what a legal process should be for European legislation. But from my perspective, the first elemental part of that response is really important to our business, which is I don't understand, and nor do our customers or those who spend the time reading into this subject matter, understand why this regulation is cleaved to tobacco products regulation. It doesn't seem to have been based upon evidential fact and a data which establishes the risks which are trying to be mitigated, and it is fundamentally going to disrupt a marketplace which has been able to, without any public sector health, generate 2 million vapers in the UK, over 10 million vapers in Europe, who've taken their own information that's available, made their own decision, and concluded that vaping using a e-cigarette device, a tobacco product, is the right thing for them to do. And that's supported not only by that empirical evidence of the users, but also by a significant welter of academic research. And the TPD, when and if implemented, will fundamentally undermine, nay, destroy that.
So, but what gives you the right to do this? I mean, basically, you make some good points from your point of view as a business. It may not be what you want, but what gives you the right to try to overturn the will of the European Parliament, the European Commission, the 28 member states that have all agreed this through, legitimate lawmaking process?
Well, that's a valid question. Every citizen or company has the right to expect that the democratic process is followed. If the democratic process was followed, we would not have had this regulation. There has been a circumvention and sometimes an absolute ignoring of the due process should have been followed. And indeed, the due process should have been informed by the necessary information to make sure the regulation and the output of that legislative process was fit for purpose. Neither of those two things have happened, and therefore it's a legitimate thing for us to do, which is to, A, as a citizen, and B, as a European legitimately trading company, to challenge a directive which is patently unacceptable and has not followed due process.
Paul, what's the lawyer's view on that question?
Yes, well, the directive may well have been passed into law by a majority of the MEPs, but that doesn't mean that the MEPs can pass whatever they like. There are important overriding principles that are set out in EU law, in the EU treaties, and any decision to pass new legislation has to be in accordance with those overriding principles, and we identified that the Tobacco Directive and Article 20 in particular don't meet those requirements.
So given that the case is based on an infringement of the EU treaties, what are the main legal arguments you're going to put in front of the court about Article 20 to get them to overturn it?
Well, there are four main grounds to the legal challenge. The first one is that the provisions of Article 20 are disproportionate, and that means that they're too heavy. This is a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and they could have been dealt with in a less restrictive and less burdensome manner. Secondly, that they're discriminatory. They discriminate between tobacco cigarettes and electronic cigarettes, and they discriminate in favour of the tobacco products, which are the more harmful products. Thirdly, these measures could have been dealt with on a member state by member state basis. There's no requirement for these to be addressed on a pan-European basis. It could have been left to individual member states to deal with particular issues as they see fit. And fourthly, that the provisions infringe key treaty principles and key rights that Totally Wicked has. One of the restrictions will be a ban on advertising, and that will infringe key rights that Totally Wicked and other manufacturers have.
So who's going to hear the case, and who will be defending it, against this legal challenge that you're bringing?
Well, the case will be heard by a panel of judges in the European Court in Luxembourg. There will probably be a hearing in about a year's time. It may not happen until the back end of 2015. Before then, there will be an opportunity for Totally Wicked, for the European institutions, and any member states that take an interest in this challenge to put in written submissions, setting out their arguments one way or the other, whether it's in favour or against the provisions of Article 20, and those submissions will be filed in the early part of next year. once we've seen those, then we'll understand what approach the EU institutions are going to take in resisting this challenge, because at the moment they've not played any part in the legal process so far, which has simply been a challenge issued against the Secretary of State in the UK. So we'll understand more the basis upon which they are asserting that the directive is lawful. There will then be an opportunity for the Advocate General in the European Court to give his legal opinion as to whether the provisions of Article 20 are lawful or not, and there will then be the hearing towards the back end of next year. So it will be quite a slow process over the next 12 months, but hopefully by the spring of next year we'll have a better understanding of the different arguments and which parties are seeking to intervene and support or resist Totally Wicked's arguments.
And talking of that, some people say that the Department of Health is supporting this case. Now, that doesn't sound right. What's the story?
They're not supporting the case. What they are essentially agreeing to is this being referred to the Luxembourg courts for a ruling as soon as possible, and they're going to leave it to the EU institutions to make the case. They're simply not going to participate in setting out the arguments, really.
And what do you think the arguments will be? I mean, I've read the Totally Wicked statement of facts and grounds. It seems very convincing to me. How are you anticipating they are going to defend their corner?
Well, it's hard to say because they've not really been part of this legal process so far. The process has started off by challenging the Secretary of State's decision here in the UK, and until we get the submissions from the EU Commission in the new year, we won't really know how they're attacking it. They could go into great detail and set out all of the arguments with supporting evidence, or they may simply make very short legal submissions and leave it to the European courts. So we really don't know.
But I think also there's an important point beyond the core legal, which is we have not brought this case because there is some peculiarity in the legal process that we hope to win on. As far as I'm concerned, the arguments are simple and very compelling. And if they're simple and very compelling to me, and they're simple and very compelling to our legal team, and we are able to offer those to objective judges, then why would they not be simple and compelling to the legal team who are asked to make a decision on this particular matter? I think they're going to find it very difficult to make a cogent argument. If they try to frame their argument on due process has been followed, then I think they'll flounder. If they try to make an argument on the fact that this is justified by academic research, they'll flounder.
Well, of course, there was that letter from the scientists who wrote in making many of the criticisms of the directive,
Absolutely.
which you've drawn on heavily in the case. Indeed,
and there's been a lot of misrepresentation. It's actually been a very unedifying process to be witness to. Lots of people aren't aware of just how many shenanigans there have been and how untypical of what they should expect from the democratic leadership. So I think when we get ourselves in front of a court, when we get the opportunity to have those very simple yet compelling and fully supported arguments, it's going to be exceptionally difficult for there to be a counter-argument that picks them up to pieces and undermines what is a very simple, compelling and well-argued argument.
There's a lot of interest in the case. I think there's a lot of people very glad that Totally Wicked have taken the initiative on this. People are asking, how can they help? How can they be involved? So is it possible for them to participate in the formal process? Can they write submissions or affidavits or provide evidence? Or is there some other way in which they can get involved? Let's start with the formal side of it, Paul.
Well, unfortunately, they can't participate in the legal process because the court rules limit that to the current parties, the member states and the relevant EU institutions. Those are the only parties that can file formal written submissions. So there's no opportunity for other interested parties, members of the public, to make any submissions within the court process.
What about outside the court process and the sort of court of public opinion?
Well, the court of public opinion and the emotional court, I think we need to continue to do what we, the collective industry base, but more importantly the consumer base, did so remarkably well in 2013, which was bring to bear their passionate arguments and their rationality to this. And the more people who are informed of our legal case, the more people are informed of those basic tenets of our legal case, and the more people that recognise this is not just in the sole narrow commercial interest of our business, but actually there is a very strong moral touchstone and there's a very strong basis for what we're doing that touches every single vapor and every single participant in this sector who wishes to see a sector that's allowed to be competitive, that's allowed to continue the innovation and to deliver the products in that environment that the customers need. So the more people who are aware, the greater the base of advocacy, the more difficult it's going to be, I believe, for the European Parliament to not listen to this in the way that they have to. They are legally bound to listen to this objectively, and the more people who are informed of those simple objective arguments, I think the more influence, pressure, call it what you will be brought to bear, and the greater explicit responses and outputs which will need to be held account to. Yeah. So I think more people get involved, more people read the discussions, get involved in communicating with your MEPs, get involved in your communities who vape, and allow for those arguments to become really resonant with all who have to listen.
And what about the timetable? What's going to happen now? I mean, when's this all going to really hit the news and hit the courts and be in front of the judges, Paul?
Well, the European Court will formally announce this reference in the next few weeks, and it will publish the questions that have been referred in the official journal of the European Union, which hopefully will happen before Christmas or very early in the new year. So that will generate some degree of interest across the whole of the European Union, and that really is the start of the court proceedings. Once that happens, and then the institutions or member states put in written submissions. So that should happen in the new year or in the spring. I think it will be the end of next year, the end of 2015, before we actually have a hearing in Luxembourg, and then the decision may take another 3 or 4 months. So it is going to get very close to the implementation date in May 2016 before this is finally resolved one way or the other. Obviously, we're doing all we can to try and expedite matters in the European Court and get this before the judges as soon as possible. But it is likely to be a close-run thing.
All right. Looking ahead, let's say we're at the beginning of 2016, the court issues a judgment, goes with your arguments. What should happen then? And because we've got a directive on the books that is then struck down, a gap opens. What should happen next?
What should happen and what will happen? What should happen, I believe we roll back time until 2012 and 2013 and we start again. We recognise that the premise for the regulation for e-cigarettes should not be related to tobacco products, that they sell to the same customer base does not necessarily make the argument that they are one and the same thing and therefore kin in relationship to regulation. So they need their own bespoke regulation. The academic body of evidence that now exists should be listened to and should be considered. There needs to be a fundamental understanding as to why regulation is being applied. What is it there to protect? Take rational consideration that are the information that supports that basic question and put together a regulatory set which protects consumers, informs consumers, and allows these products to have the legitimate space to be available to allow for smokers to have a legitimate choice apart from cigarettes and pharmaceutical nicotine replacement therapy, which is what has happened, which is now potentially being denied. So we start again.
Let's suppose the institutions came back either at UK level or EU level and said, right, that's it then, we're going to regulate these things as medicines. I mean, what would happen next?
Well, interestingly, there have been a number of cases already in individual member state courts where the member states have ruled that the electronic cigarette product cannot be regulated as a medicine under existing medicinal regulations.
Fraser, would you challenge again?
Of course, we'd have to. It would be absolutely necessary for us to. It would be an extension of this ongoing case that we have with the European Court. So yes, we'd have to, and we would do.
You'll keep challenging until you get good regulation that's properly and lawfully grounded.
Absolutely. Properly regulated sector is what we strive for, that we try to do our best within currently, that our consumers and customers demand from us, and our politicians and regulators should also be demanding and delivering the legislation to deliver.
And Paul, I just want one final point, because often these cases sort of in the media and by some in the public health community, they get sort of seen as a tobacco industry plot to try and sabotage the entire directive. That's not what's going on here, is it?
No, this is a very focused legal challenge on Article 20, which relates to electronic cigarettes. We're not seeking to overturn the entirety of the Tobacco Products Directive, simply the annulment of Article 20, which will have such a devastating impact on the e-cigarette market and users of e-cigarettes.
I think a company leadership perspective, we're not a tobacco company. We are an independent private company. We can make decisions based upon things other than narrow commerciality. And this decision is something which is based upon something much more fundamental than narrow, totally wicked commercial reasons. It is based upon that premise that we mentioned and discussed previously, which is this is just wrong, it's immoral. And the leadership of this company, which I'm very proud of, has taken that position and put literally our money where our mouth is, which is we're going to take some action which this sector needs. First and foremost, as a consequence, our business will benefit, but everybody else will as well.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for those remarks. Very informative. I found that very useful. Thank you.
Clive.
Thank you, Clive. Thank you.
And there you go. Thank you for sticking with us. We are now on 4G. EE, double thumbs up to you. BT and BT OpenReach, double thumbs down to you, because you're killing me. Yes, Stan, now that VT was a little bit old. It was the back end of last year. TW put it out again this week. And I thought it would be good to get it aired out there because you see more of the kind of transition. We did another interview with Fraser at Vaper Expert at the NEC, which you can find in the videos as a standalone video on our YouTube page. Have a look at that. Fraser talks to Dave Dawn in that one, and there's a bit more information there. But really, this is the only challenge from in this country that is I've got any kind of hope. And Fraser reckons it's a 50-50. It really is that slim, 50-50 of anything good coming out of it. But it's the only thing we've got thus far. In the meantime, you must speak to your MPs and your MEPs. MEPs really can't do that much at the minute, but your MPs, because they have got more influence in our British Parliament. So you really need to speak to your MPs on that. Garry, come to you for a couple of secs.
Yeah. Again, it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's rally time again, isn't it? It's, you know, like you say, MPs and all that sort of stuff. It feels like we're going back where we were a little while ago. But yeah, that's all we can do. I mean, it's amazing the amount of cash and that they must be piling into that, and it's not just for personal gain. It's for, you know, everybody, which I can't see anybody else doing. So, you know, you got to back the guys.
Indeed. And Whip It Up says, how can it be 50-50 when Article 20 is so wrong? Well, we know it's so wrong. That's why this action is being taken by Totally Wicked. But I think what's happened is, since this has started, the fight has kind of waned a little bit, and we're trying to keep up this fight. Because if we don't, we're just going to get completely railroaded again when it comes to 2016, and then the implementation by 2017. We really will be stuffed. So have a look at the other VT that Dave did with Fraser at Vaper Expo. He's a very articulate chap. He knows exactly what he's talking about. He's done all his research, obviously, and he's also spending a huge amount of cash to try and get this ridiculous piece of legislation altered, changed, thrown out, whatever we can, really. Obviously, the PHE report from a few weeks ago, that might help as well. It might not, but it might. So there's still things to be done. But if we just sit and wait and think, oh well, we'll just wait for that to happen in November, December time, might well be too late. Yeah. Let's go to the break. We are going to go over by about 10 minutes, I would think, because of the ridiculous broadband situation that BT shoved me in. So we'll go to the break, and then we'll have Garry's bit of VT after that. Stay tuned, because it's good stuff.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Vapers, Dripper just got 40% bigger. So if you love discovering new e-liquids, tell Dripper what flavours you like and we'll send you 70ml of juice and at least 5 flavours. With a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe, dripper.co.uk.
What's in this e-cig cloud? Harmless water vapour, right? Pretty much, yes. Compared to a lit cigarette, it's much safer than smoke. But it contains nicotine, and nicotine on its own isn't toxic and doesn't cause cancer. If you're worried about switching to vapour, here are some facts. No tar, no smoke, no burnt tobacco. Cooking your evening meal produces more toxins than are found in exhaled vapour. Tobacco smoke contains toxins at very high levels, and vapour does not. And that vapour contains 6,000 times less carcinogens than cigarette smoke. Electronic cigarette vapour. There's nothing to be frightened of. The only dangerous electronic cigarette is a banned one.
And now it's back to Vaper Scene on Vaper Trails TV. Vaper Scene is sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
And we are back again. Hello. And you can still see me, which is good. Yes. Gary, over to you. You can introduce your first VT for some time. Here we go.
For this year, yeah. So yes, we're back, and basically I'm getting my new tool out. There we go.
Was that it?
That was it. Yeah, nice and sweet.
Oh, dear me. Here we go then.
Right, so we are back in the room. Finally, it's been a long time, and you may well be looking at my Virgin bench. This is a new bench. This bench is going to be used for filming and doing all that sort of stuff. What have I been up to? It's been busy, and I'm just going to do the hand thing for a little bit. I've got new tools. I've got new stuff. I've got slightly refreshed. I'm knackered, but I'm refreshed, and I had to be away for a little while for good reason, mainly making stuff for Vape Fest, but I'm back, and going forwards we have some fun coming up because I have new tools. I've got new toys, and I've got new stuff. Before I left, the one mod I spoke about was the Limo 2. And I've got a new little accompaniment for it, which is a Seagull 75 and all that sort of stuff, temp control, and I am still loving the simplicity of this thing and how it works, and this is just performing. That's where I am now. Oh, apart from one other thing, picked up a Vape Fest, a Royal Hunter dripper, something like that, on the box that we made a little while ago, and that is incredible. So that's where I am vaping wise. Nothing else has changed. Where am I tool wise, and what are we going to do or look at going forwards? I was sick and tired of people the lathe splurting stuff in my face, and I'm pretty sure you're aware you can't have stuff spurting in your face when you're concentrating on something. So I've gone out and I have myself this will feature. This is the new face mask. It's more protective gear. So as well as doing your eyes, it stops anything going in your mouth when you're down low and getting dirty with a tool. This, and I'll tell you why we got this a little bit later. This is more of a showing you where we're going to go next week. I've got to go out. I've got to order stuff, and all that. You know, I've got a mod of sorts coming up. I've got some of these, which are big clampy thingies and small clampy. Knock in the camera. Small clampy thingies for doing wood stuff. I'm just gonna look away if you're easily offended. My tool is just about to go past. Now, this is my big tool. This is the one that I had on stand at Vape Fest, and this is the one that Neil has touched. He held and fondled and quite enjoyed. But I'm sorry to say, Neil, I have a new tool, and this one here is a spindle master. It's called a spindle master. It has a seriously good head on it, and this cuts for fun and can do some funky shapes on the lathe. We'll go a little bit more in detail at some point on different tools on the lathe and all that sort of stuff. Where are we going to start? We're going to start with my new tool, which is rather dangerous. Well, I like to think it is. It is. You can cut anything off. If you put anything near this thing, it will cut it off completely. You may recall a little while ago I made this, which was a oaky thing. It took an 18350 battery in there, and this was going back quite a while. It's got a 510 connection and it had a switch, which was an ATI rebuilding station. You press that, the coils glow. Things have moved on since this has been built, and this is not performing for me now, so I need to build a new one, and this will be our first project. I have a nice chunk of the same sort of oak worktop, and what I intend to do is make this 18650. It's going to have an external battery pack for potentially volt and ohm meter. We're going to be starting this next week, and leads me on very nicely to one's new tool. I'm going to try and get some shape into this. I'll pop back in two and we'll show you exactly what we're talking about. So this is the new tool, and you may see some whiting on here. Now basically that is because the cutting thing on here is coated with a lacquer, and I'm literally in the process of setting this up. I've cut a few bits, but not much, and this thing is bloody dangerous and scares the crap out of me. But it has a mitery thing that goes up and down, and you can set at different angles and tighten it up and cut at degrees and stuff. All good, I suppose. And it's got a fence thingy that goes in and gives you your depth of cut. It's not a massive one. This is a Charmwood B250. The reason I chose this one is because of the girth. It's got to have a bit of girth, and that allows me to cut to a reasonable depth. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Let me grab a tree trunk. You know, that will allow me to cut this down, and this was the limit of my budget for one of these. It's got a lighty thing that goes on and off, so you can see what you're cutting. It's reasonable in its price bracket, and that was the thing. So it will enable me to do going forwards, some box mods, some things like that. I haven't got a clue how to set it up. Roscoe, who makes the stands, is going to help me sorting out levelling the table and doing all that sort of stuff. Hopefully next week we'll be in a position to start using this. I might make a cut a little bit later, I don't know. But this is where we're going. Something like this. We can make box mods. I've got some new stuff. I've got a sanding machine coming. I've got a X and Y axis thing that will go on the bench drill, so when you've got wood in it you can mill it and all that sort of stuff. So lots of planning. We've been doing lots of planning while we've been away as to what we can bring you. I'm sure people are screaming for blood already. I might get down and dirty on the table and put some wood in and see where it goes. I'm worried, but I've got me face mask. You know, it should be good. Back in 2, I might be down on the table. Right, now before I power this thing up, we did speak a bit about safety, and I've got this new face mask, and joking aside, I have had a couple of chunks that have just fired up and smacked me in the chin, and I woke up in the morning with thinking what was a pimple, and it's like a chunk of acrylic in my face. So this is now essential, and under there, when we're doing the wood, effectively I've got a decent mask that fits nicely in there to be fully protected. This has a dust outlet, and I've got a vacuum that can go to that. I've got an offcut of oak, and we'll just try. He says try and show you just what we can do with that. Now, the idea. Now I'm going to be learning this as I go, and the idea, as I understand it, is that thing there needs to be down to where you're cutting, and you tighten that off. I know nothing about working with a bandsaw. I've not done it ever. So let's give it a blast. I'm going to cut away. I'll put me safety stuff on, but this effectively would make a nice mod. You can do a lot of the shaping on here and all that sort of stuff. I aim to be doing some stabilised wood at some point, and I've got the stuff coming to do that. I've got a pressure pot and the acrylics and the soaks and all that sort of stuff, so hopefully at some point we'll try and do a nice pressure pot stabilised wood DNA whatever, or just make the you know, we could team up, we could make the box and give it someone else to finish. Let me get my my safety gear on, protect my ding dangs, and I'll be back in 2.
It might be rather muffled when I'm trying to do this, because I've got the mask on and this, and I've just poked the friggin' eye out. But I will try to speak loud so you can hear me above the bleeding dog that's barking next door. I'm going to power this up. I'm just going to run it through. Let me take that off. I'm just going to try a cut. Next week, I'll appear to be an expert. Power going on. Something like that. Now, as you can probably tell, I know bugger all about these things, but I intend to learn, and I intend to learn a lot, and I intend to learn quickly. We can have some fun. I'm pretty sure we can have some fun. That was probably a waste of wood, and lots of trees died needlessly for me to do that cut. With the sanding thing, we could sand all that stuff off, and I'm going to play. We're going to do some boxes. Maybe with this, to practice with at first. And when we get the X and Y axis thing on the pillar drill, should all be fun. But next week, we are going to be starting the Etty firing resistance voltage building station in oak. So I've got a week to learn how to use these tools. Should be fun. I'll hand you back to Marco in the studio, where no doubt he is cringing at what might happen going forwards. Yes. Next week, updates. See you then. OMG. That's all I'm going to say, really. You must know, before we do anything else, before I even talk to Garry, that he has turned himself some new wooden fingers on the lathe, just in case he needs to replace any. A bit like Napoleon with his wooden teeth. Well, Gary's turned some nice fingers in acrylic and wood, with little joints, little yes. Garry, talk to me.
Yes, yeah. Well, we intend to be very, very, very safe because I buggered one once, so I don't intend to do it again. Yeah, that tool I'm taking seriously. I can assure you. I know someone passed comment that I shouldn't have my fingers that close, but I got lots of things I intend to do with that, as well as some nice little bandsaw boxes. And I've been speaking. There's a man that I know, which is Roscoe from Abstract Vapes. He makes all of his nice stands on a bandsaw, and he's been very, very, very helpful, and he's going to guide me through that entire process. So I'm not going to be doing it alone. I've got some real good solid backing in terms of safety and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a tool that scares the absolute but I'm taking that's one I'm taking seriously. Trust me.
Well, I do look forward to seeing the next instalments. And Garry did promise me a while ago, and I told him I was going to say this on air. He did promise me a while ago he's going to build me one of those mod building stands, coil building stands with the built-in battery and the built-in ohm meter and all that kind of stuff. So he's not getting away with it. Oh no.
That's
So
cool.
you might have to make two of them.
We will do, mate. We will do.
Because the other one does need a bit of refinement, and it does need an 18650 in there. So it's all going to be good.
Yeah.
We're out of time. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, and thanks for holding on while we had solved the little communication connection issues that I so get annoyed with. But as Sav has put into chat earlier, and as you know, I can't get fibre where I am. It's a bit of a bugbear, but we'll soldier on. Yes, we'll soldier on, and we might have to use 4G again next week for the whole show. Who knows? So tomorrow night, no show, and then Thursday it's the Haze Hour with Mr. DD. Monday we've got the old Gits, and Tuesday, all being well, you'll see me and this fella. You're on screen, mate. You can smile if you like.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, we'll give it some.
You'll see us next week. I'm off to Scotland tomorrow. Hopefully the weather will be nice to me. And I might record some VT on the way. And at some point you'll get that bit about the Smog TF-V4 and I'll finish the story off. I might record another bit tomorrow on my journey. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for bearing with, and we will see you next week. Say goodbye, Garry.
We'll see you next week. I waved the one that will be missing.
Yeah, count the fingers. Count the fingers now, and then count them next week. There you go. There's 8 fingers and 2 thumbs there. Count them next week. See you later. Bye.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquid.